you have to start with Congress because they're the lawmaking body in our country. So, Ms. Fanny, you are up. Please give her your full attention.
Okay, so does everyone have their green packet out? Okay, cool. So yeah, we're just going to do a little intro into what Congress is. And so like Mr. Olson said, Congress is the lawmaking body. So, let's see. How do you get this till?
Sorry, I should have told you this. I'm sorry. Okay, so you just use this as a mouse, so it's the left button. What?
Okay, so throughout this unit, we're going to talk about what is Congress, how it's set up, what are the essential features of Congress, and what Congress does. And so like we mentioned, Congress makes laws. Okay, so let's just go with a brief overview of how Congress is set up. So Congress is a bicameral legislature. Does anyone know what that means? What is bicameral?
Come on, get a hand up.
Yeah.
Learn bicameral, get a hand up.
Bi means two, bicameral, it's got House and the Senate, two houses.
Perfect. So bi means two, and cameral, I don't know exactly what it means, but something along the House. So Congress is set up with a two-house system, meaning that we have the House of Representatives, and the Senate. Okay, so let's talk about the House. So in the House of Representatives, we have 435 representatives, and that number is set. It does not change. So at any given point, there always will be 435, and the way that changes is based on population. So representatives from the House are drawn from a state's population. So a bigger state would obviously have more representatives, and a smaller state would have less representatives. Okay, so with the House, representation comes from population. And so within the House, it has separate powers and responsibilities than the Senate. So for example, some powers in the House would be impeachment. So they, in the House, have the responsibility to kind of initiate impeachment against the president. So they start that process. Can anyone name a president that's been impeached? Yeah. Yeah, so that process was started with Bill Clinton when he was impeached by the House. So another power that the House has is to control taxes. Okay. And so then also the way the House is organized, you have kind of strict rules, and then you have a leader. Does anyone know who the leader of the House is, or what they're called? Speaker of the House. Yeah, so the Speaker of the House right now is Paul Ryan, I believe. Okay. Is that not?
Sorry, I just heard on the news. I don't know too much about this. You know that march that happened on Saturday? So some of the organizers, and you know who one of the big visible figures is in that movement. She was a girl who had a friend killed in the shooting. I can't remember her name. She's got a short hair. She's kind of a short girl, but she's really a fireball in this. Anyway, I would assume her and some of the other organizers are behind this, but they're going to march 50 miles to his home district, the speaker's, and of course he's been generally against gun control. So they're getting down and dirty into the political battle here. They're going to march to his district. That's getting serious. And so it may backfire on them, depends on how that works, but it'll definitely put pressure on Paul Ryan. As a politician, he'll have to respond to it. He can't just sit back and not do anything. So we'll have to see how that story plays out. That's interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that. Okay. So let's talk about the Senate. So the Senate is made up from 2 senators from each state, and they serve for 6 years. Also, one thing I also wanted to mention with both the House and the Senate, there are not term limits. So as long as you're elected, you can be a senator for however long. It's not like the presidency where you have term limits of 2. You can be elected over and over. And so the Senate is equal representation. Every state sends 2. And so then the Senate, just like the House, has specific powers, responsibilities. So the House can start the process of impeachment, but then the Senate will try and convict a president. So the Senate can convict. And then another power of the Senate is that they have the ability to, accept appointments. So the president will come in and say, hey, I want this judge. I think it was last fall that President Trump tried to, or successfully, appointed Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court. And then he had to be appointed by the Senate, or he had to be confirmed by the Senate. And so the Senate is a little more open in their rules, and kind of individuals have more power. So that's kind of the difference between the House and the Senate. And so together they make up this bicameral House. Okay, so let's talk about congressional terms. So, Congress runs for 2 years. So currently we are in the 115th session of Congress. So Congress runs every 2 years. How many years has it been in existence? $230, yeah. So congressional terms every 2 years. So starting in January and going to January. So January 2017 to January 2019 is the one we're in right now. So it'll end next January. Okay. And then let's talk about reapportionment. So this is the process by which, you decide who gets what seats in the House. And it's done with a census. So looking at state population through the census, how often is the census conducted? Every 10 years. So every 10 years, they get all this data in with how many people are in each state living there, and they go through and they say, okay, so this state grew this much, they need this many representatives. Or this state is not growing, or whatever, they can look at that data. And so then, once they look at the census data, they can reassign House seats. Because like we said, there's that set number of 435. And so they're going to redistribute that number to match population growth. And so some states could lose representatives, or some states could gain, or some states could stay the same, depending. And so let's look at some maps to kind of understand this concept of reassigning House seats. So remember, the Senate stays the same. There's always going to be 102 from each state. And the House will be set at 435, but will depend on different states. Okay, so this is what it looked like in 2000. And so you can see it has the numbers of how many representatives each state has. How many does Utah have? 3. Yeah, so Utah had 3 in 2000. Then you have other states, look at Texas, it has a lot, 32, has a huge population. California, 53. And so, and then look at this for a second, and then we're going to look at the 2010 census and look at some changes. Okay, so then, Okay, 2010. So, how many seats did Utah gain? 1, yeah. And that is the seat that I believe Mia Love right now is occupying. Okay. We see California didn't have any change, still have 53. Texas gained, I think, what was Texas at? 33? 32? 32. Texas gained 4. Huge population. But yeah, so we see that, so they use the census, they look at population. You have population growth in like areas like Florida or Georgia or Texas, Utah. And then they go through and they get seats added to them. And then places such as Illinois, Ohio, they lose their seats because not necessarily their population is shrinking, but other parts of the country are growing so much faster that they have to redistribute those representatives. Okay. Any questions with that? Okay. Then,